What's up guys, D-Libs here. Today we're going to be doing a complete tier list for the Rainbow Six Siege factions. So in case you didn't know, that's like the FBI, Spetsnaz, GIGN, all of those different little squads. And we're going to be ranking them off of the operators that are in that squad. So a squad that has, 4 operators versus a squad that has 1 operator, there's no really difference in weighting. We're just going to base it off of, who's better. So if that 1 operator is better than those 4 operators, then that's going to get ranked higher. There's like 1 or 2 squads that are unaffiliated or like don't have any logos or anything like that, so they didn't get included in this tier list, but that accounts for like maybe 2 or 3 operators. And we're going to do it in order as you see the logos appear at the bottom of your screen there. So we're starting off with the 707th SMB squad, which makes up Dokkaebi and Vigil. I would say that Vigil is a good defender and Dokkaebi is a great attacker, so I think that is definitely means for having the 707th SMB start us off in the A. Next we have the AFEAU, which is what Solis is in. Solis is also a great operator. I think we're going to put that in the A category as well. Next is the APCA with Amaru in it. I don't think there's any way really around this. I don't know if Amaru would ever be argued to be a great operator for what she does. I think she would make sense to go in the D category for the APCA. Next up is the SFG 4 Sense. That's definitely F tier. We don't really need to spend a whole lot of time on it. We're going to put SFG in the F tier. Next up we have BOPE or BOPE, which of course has Capital and Caveira in it. I would say those are 2 mid-level attackers slash defenders. I think that BOPE is going to go in the C tier. CBRN threat unit, that is going to be Lion and Finka, and both of their abilities are still super useful. I would say that they're going to be B category. Next up is the COT, which has Brava in it. I would say that's just gonna be a solid C tier, nothing all that crazy. She's good, it's fine. We're just gonna put it in C. Next up are the Navy SEALs. This is Blackbeard and Valkyrie. Now this is a tough one because Valkyrie definitely brings this way up, but Blackbeard brings it way down. I think you could look at it different ways though, because Blackbeard was really good when he first came around in this game, and he is getting a buff later on this year, so he could be really, really good again. So I'd say considering they even out, C tier would make sense, but I think because of Blackbeard's past and because of his future with how good he could be, we have to look ahead. We're going to say that they're going to be B tier. Then we have FBI Los Angeles, which would be Thermite, Ash, Castle, Pulse, all of those guys. Every single operator I just named, they're all so solid. Ash is a solid fragging operator, Thermite's the best hard breacher, Pulse is great for map control, and so is Castle really. I'm going to say that this is going to be an S tier for sure. Next up we have the Fuerzas Especiales, which is what Goyo is in. Nothing all that special, I'm going to say D tier. Next up is the Emergency Response Unit. Now I will say their badge here is really sick, but it's still Thorn, nothing all that crazy. Again, I'm going to say D tier. Next we have Geo, which is Jackal and Mira. That is 100% S tier. Those are 2 operators that changed the whole game and are still changing the game today. 2 operators that get banned so often in ranks. That just shows how good they really are. Then we have GIGN, which is Rook, Doc, Twitch, Monty, all 4 of those guys. Like I said, another squad with 4 operators, but certainly nowhere near as good as FBI Los Angeles. I would say these 4 operators are definitely like musts in this game, like they're foundational pieces, but they're not FBI, they're not anything all that crazy. I'm gonna say B tier. Next we have the GIGR, which is Nomad and Kaid. These are 2 very solid operators. I would say Nomad doesn't get played enough for how good she really is, and I would say Kaid definitely, he deserves his flowers. He's a very, very good anti-entry operator. You could definitely make the argument that he's better than Bandit. I'm gonna put GIGR in the A tier. Next up we have GIS, which would be Maestro and Alibi. Maestro's definitely good right now, but Alibi is nowhere near that level. So I would say Maestro is upper middle tier, and I would say that Alibi is definitely lower tier. I'm gonna say it probably evens out at the C tier. Next up we have the GSG9 with Blitz, IQ, Jaeger, and Bandit. This is 100% S tier. I don't think anyone's gonna argue that. Jaeger and Bandit, 2 of the best defenders, and then Blitz and IQ. Blitz isn't necessarily one of the best attackers, but if you're really good at Blitz, then you're really good at Blitz, And IQ is so underrated. I've always said this. She is such a good operator. Those 4 are just so solid. I think they definitely belong in the S tier with the FBI Los Angeles and the Geo. And then we have the GSUTR, which would be Maverick and Clash. Maverick's good. I would say Maverick by himself is probably a B or C tier. Clash, I just don't think that even if you can play her well, I just don't think she'll ever really be a top operator. I think we're going to have to put them in the D tier. I was thinking maybe C tier, but that doesn't really make sense. I don't think that they belong in there with some of those other, operators that we have in the C tier. So we're just going to say D. And then we have the Inkaba Task Force, which is actually just Melusi, not Ace. He's technically unaffiliated. He's just in Nighthaven. So we're only basing this on Melusi, and unfortunately Melusi is just really not it right now. There are so many better alternatives to Melusi on defense. I would say that she's gotta be F tier. Next up we have the Jaeger Core, which is Nook. Warden is also not in this, so it's only Nook. We're only basing it on Nook, and she is just awful right now. Like, just to say it straight up, if you're playing Nook in ranked, then you really are just doing a disservice to your whole team. She is not good, F tier 100%. Next up we have the Joint Task Force 2, which would be Buck and Frost. Life was so much simpler when these were the only 2 DLC operators back in Operation Black Ice. But hey, I would say that they're still good. I would say Frost by herself is probably C tier. She's really not all that great. A lot of people really love her, but as you get higher up in ranked, it just doesn't work anymore. And Buck will always be a good operator in my eyes, so I'm gonna say they're gonna go in the B tier. And then you have the Grom or the GROM squad. This would be Ella and Zofia. Zofia and Ella both used to be S tier, and I would say that they both fell down pretty heavy. I'm gonna say that this is probably a C tier addition. I don't know, I think that makes sense. I'm a little bit torn. I think I'm just gonna leave it there. Then we have the Carries Legion, which is just Deimos. I've said it many times, Deimos is really not all that great. I'm not saying he's bad, but it's very different compared to how we've seen a lot of operators get added to the game in the past, where they come into the game and they're overpowered. Deimos came into the game very balanced. I would say that he's not necessarily on the lower end of this tier list because he is still new. People are still trying to figure out how to play against him, so I think that gives him the benefit of the doubt to move him up into the B tier. And then we have Nighthaven, which makes up Callie, Ace, Osa, Grim, Wamai, and Aruni. I'm gonna say none of those operators really stand out a whole lot to me. I'd say Ace is probably the best out of all of them, considering he's, you know, probably a top 2, maybe debatable, and best hard breacher in the game. It's a very vast lineup, you know, a lot of different operators that do very different things, but I'm gonna say none of those operators are really top tier operators besides for Ace. So I'm gonna say that probably pulls them up to the B tier, but yeah, Nighthaven's kinda just mid, I'm not gonna lie. Then we have the REU, which is just Iana. Oryx is technically unaffiliated. I'm gonna say Iana is probably in the A tier. Maybe we'll go B tier. I don't know, I'm kind of flip-flopping. I think B tier probably makes sense. I hate how B tier is really starting to take up most of the operators, or most of the squads rather, but I don't know, I can't really do much about it. It kind of just works out that way. Then we have the ROS, which is Zero. I've said it many times, Zero in theory should be way higher, like way better than he actually is, but he's just not. I'm gonna say that's gonna be D tier. And then we have the SAS, which is Smoke, Mute, Sledge, Thatcher, another classic. Sledge and Thatcher are just 2 amazing operators, and same with Smoke and Mute. All 4 of those operators I would be so happy to see get played on my team. I'm gonna say that's another S tier addition. Then we have the Special Air Service Regiment or SASR, which is Mozzie and Gridlock. I'm gonna say Gridlock and Mozzie right now are both upper middle of the pack, which is gonna have us putting that in the B tier again. Oh well. Next we have the SAT, which is Habana as well as Echo. Echo used to be much better, but if you know how to play Echo, if you play him well, then I would say he's probably upper middle tier. And I would say Habana is a good breacher, but not the best. So again, I think this is gonna end up with another B tier. Then we have the Special Duties Unit SDU, which is gonna be Legion and Ying. I think that's gonna be A tier. I'm very happy with that. I think Legion's in a really good spot right now. I think Ying is always gonna be good with what she does. So I think that makes sense. Then we have Spetsnaz, which is going to be Kapkan, Tachanka, Glaz, Fuse. I think the attacker side of that is pretty weak with Glaz and Fuse. I'd say Fuse is, you know, he's alright, but I'd say Glaz is pretty bad. Kapkan's definitely really good, and Tachanka is pretty bad. I'm gonna say this has to be B tier. You can't say that Spetsnaz is C tier, you know? So we're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. We're gonna say B tier. Next up we have the Starnet Aviation squad, which is gonna be just Thunderbird. Unfortunately, that's going to be an F tier. I don't think many people are really gonna argue about that. And then we have Secret Service with Warden. I think he's just awesome. As much as I despise Warden mains considering they do nothing, I love how this game has a Secret Service operator. I mean, he's just a cool looking dude. Like, look at him, you know? I'm gonna put the Secret Service up there in the A category. I think we'll finish off decently hot there with our last addition. So there you have it. That is the Rainbow Six Siege squad tier list as of Year 9, Season 1, Operation Deadly Omen. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, if you guys agree or disagree with any of my reasoning. And be sure to subscribe and go check out some of my other Rainbow Six Siege videos if you haven't already. But besides for that, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.